Yeah. So this shouldn't be a balloon conference. This is how to bodge things.
Dry erase markers only.
Yeah. Why haven't they painted all white? Okay. Should we get going then? Yeah. My name's James. You probably have met me or spoken to me at some point. Everyone sort of gets around to it at some point.
Well, I blame you for everything.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can blame me for everything. And
give us a little brief history about how you started.
Wait. We've got a thing to talk about. I said, welcome to the conference, basically. I apologise for the 4 flights of stairs. I perhaps should have warned you about that. And it's not the easiest place to find someone to actually do this, and we've been actually throwing this idea around for probably about 4 years about actually meeting up and actually having a chat about what's going on. There are some talks organised. Most people have spent 30 seconds on their presentation. Some haven't got words, some have got videos. The point really is to sort of meet each other, but also just work out other things you can do, discuss ideas, think of new ideas and so on. Make sure the way. Actually, don't worry about that. And liaise with other people and things like that. At the end of it, I hope to find that there are new projects being made. Someone's come up with a crazy idea, and actually someone else goes, "I think I can do that." Should share some knowledge, because there are, I suspect, some beginners, some people I don't know who have got in touch with me and said, "I want to come along," which is great. And there are some experienced people like Steve, who's done every single balloon launch probably there is. No?
No.
Between you and Ed, probably have done every single balloon launch. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about PICO Habbing, which is a separate thing, and please ignore, if you're new to this, this is probably not for you yet. This is a new thing we're working on, which is a bit crazy and perhaps completely useless. But just talk about the normal ballooning and how it started. I think it was back in 2005. I had a lot of time off, and I thought, well, I've got nothing else to do. And Dan, he's a guy that they had launched a balloon under his amateur radio club at university, the University of Tennessee, had launched something. And they managed to get onto Slashdot, like everything gets on Slashdot. And I was like, I could do that. And I tried, and it went okay. With my background of not really doing engineering or electronic engineering. Yeah, that's the what it's called. I went for something different, and not having a background in radio either. So my first approach was with a gumstick computer, which are these very small, thin Linux boards, which is what I can do, and a mobile phone. And we managed to get permission, which was easy back then, I'd like to point out, because no one ever applied for permission. So yeah, it was all sorted out, and I foolishly chose a weekend launch window, like 2 days, so we just launched it, whatever happened. My father helped out with the filling of the balloon we bought off eBay. We did the balloon filling things just beforehand, and we launched it. And then there were no text messages. And that's when we realised that texts don't work above a particular altitude. And so we thought, well, we've got nothing else to do, let's drive somewhere where we thought it was going. That was before the predictor. The University of Wyoming did have a predictor, but it doesn't really work that well. And it's a little bit like you have to follow what they say, so that the ascent rates and descent rates are fixed. It's worthwhile having a look at, so it's quite good.
It was better than nothing.
It's better than nothing, exactly better. We knew it gone that way. Basically, we knew it gone that way. So we drove off, and nothing. To the point where you thought, oh, give up, it's gone. And then we got a text, and that's how it all started. So the first flight went well. The second flight, and some of you may know this, that second flights don't ever go well. You put too much on board, it never works.
How did you get to know Steve then from that?
Well, and then the third flight came up, and I was like, we'll do it again. And Steve, as he perused the NOTAMs, picked up that I had a balloon NOTAM, and that's how he got in contact with me, because of course my mobile number was on there. And so the Cambridge guys got involved at the second flight, Steve got involved in the third flight, and from then onwards, here we are. One good thing about sort of UKHAS and UK high altitude stuff and high altitude ballooning is that people, I think we've got quite a good community. I think that's the key. We do separate projects, everyone has their own thing, and I think that's great. Some places, like the States, they work together in big groups, but that doesn't always work so well. And this way, I think we've always said this is like an umbrella organisation. It hasn't got any power. We're going to talk about that later, actually, but it's just a thought. It's like a grouping of thing, and the IRC channel is probably the key place. And there's always someone on there, and I think later we'll show you some logs which we've managed to recover from the first time it was turned on, which is me logging in and logging off, logging in and logging off, no one else being there.
Billy no one.
And my bot, the Zeus bot was there as well at the beginning. Me and him were great fun. But yeah, so that was the beginning of that. So do ask questions on there. People are really good. There is people come from a large guys. They need to grab some more seats and then bring them through. There are a few here as well, and there are some that have been assigned to bag duty. But yeah, grab chairs and fit in. There are 5 chairs in here already. They even need to steal those chairs.
No.
Fine. We'll just pause for a second.
There's a few chairs up there, guys.
Come through. I put quite a few chairs out. Screaming camera!
Is the camera still pointing somewhere you used to?
Oh, it's
is that?
wrong. Guys, there's more space over here. Look, there are chairs. Come and take seats. People move out the way and then sit down. Yeah, Ed has a chair for his laptop.
It's a MacBook.
It's a MacBook chair. I think there's one back there as well. Yeah, come on, we can fit you in, we really can.
And then you're extra back there.
There you guys are late. Okay. Then you're on.
Oh, you got the fast train, you said?
It's a Western train.
Yeah, it's a UK train. Okay, so we're just talking about how it all started, and you missed the beginning of the watch it later on YouTube. You were there, but you have to watch it again. So we're talking about how it all started. So yeah, get on the channel and chat there. The things crazy discussions made on that channel. We've discussed. Lawrence is usually the main problem. But the things are discussed there, and the wiki as well. The wiki is excellent. It's taken quite a lot of years, but there is everything on there. It's a little bit difficult to navigate, but that's half the fun. But people have put loads of stuff on there that, and the search doesn't really work. But it really is everything about how to make cut downs, and people have put videos how to do balloon filling. We tried to hold back a little bit from putting on how to do a balloon payload, because that's half the fun. There is, and we'll talk about this again in the discussion about whether there should be a barrier, like a barrier a little bit in, it's not something you can just buy willy-nilly and then send off on the fleet. You need to think about it a bit more, because there is a degree of responsibility about what we do, and potentially trouble. But we've never had any trouble.
Doesn't care to talk about.
Yeah, I have to talk about my trouble, but no one else will. Right. Fine. So that's my introduction. Tea and coffee. We're going to have. There's lunch. We're going to get pizzas at some point. Work that out. And thank you very much for paying. I apologise. We tried to make it as cheap as possible, but it's just difficult to hire space, and we've got a few sort of rewards. What are we going to do with those radios? We're going to raffle them or something? Yeah, fine. We have some radios to give out. Well, raffle.
What colour are they?
NTX2.
Quite a lot of them. And stuff like that.
You got to say nice things about radio.
Yeah, radio metrics. Well,
just keep every word in.
Yeah.
Ken might be watching.
Let's skip my first talk though, because that's not radio metrics. But radio metrics, they actually are very helpful. They're very good, and they have been very, they've been working with us well about stuff. Basically, their decision is that we don't. They're happy for us to do what we do, but they'd rather we provide the technical support than them, because they quote on their website that the radio works 200 meters. I think we may have proved that
pushing
one
it
a little bit wrong.
What is the record, James?
I think it's 500.
It's still
570 kilometers now on the ground. Is that so? Calculating from ground points rather
what
than.
antenna was it?
Just
Colonial antennas, so not really
Didn't they get longer range in Australia with a 25 milliwatts?
I don't care.
Nah.
We don't talk about 25 milliwatts. Nobody uses 25 milliwatts.
10 milliwatts. Fine. Okay. So I'll just get on and do my talk. The reason I'm doing this talk first is because I want to get out of the way. I can get on and watch everyone else. PICO Habbing is a new idea, but it's actually not a new idea. It's been tried before in the States by some guys who worked for Motorola, and they spent ages working on this mobile phone, and then they got told by Motorola they got cancelled. They were angry. They had three prototypes. They put the first one on a rocket, and it blew up. As a model rocket, not a real rocket. And the second one, they thought, why don't we attach this to a balloon? And they've seen everyone doing all their big latex meteorological balloons, but they went, nah, we're not going to do that. What happens if we use party balloons, the foil ones? And this is where PICO Habbing was born, really. And they had a couple of goes, and they made what I still think is one of the best. They had these mobile phones, and they did everything by mobile phone. But they put on Yagi antennas facing down onto really well designed, so that the balloon floats at a relatively high altitude, and actually able to communicate with the ground. That's not strictly probably legal, because they were adding a lot more power on, the gain was much higher, but never mind, they stopped doing that. So then that's where they started, and they actually managed to launch one from Chicago, and it was recovered from Newfoundland 2 days later. And they managed to track it along the way with pictures from their, multimedia phone, got pictures along the way. It's quite cool, but it was a bit sparse. And it showed that these balloons could float. Now I'm actually not going to talk about the dynamics of these balloons, because Dan's going to talk about it this afternoon later about it. But basically these are foil balloons, not the latex that we normally use that stretches. These are foil balloons, they've got a set volume. You don't fill them up to the volume, but you set. Yeah, the material is strong enough to withstand the pressure, and so it floats, rather than the other balloons which stretch and then burst. Not as easy as it sounds. But let's not worry about that. Why would we do this? It's a different flight dynamic. These balloons have got potential to float. You may have noticed that there are sort of two camps in ballooning right now. There are the altitude people and then the long duration people. And they sort of don't work together. But this is a different flight dynamic. It's not an up-down, take a few pictures job. No, it's a different step. Potential for long duration flights. If we could get this working, if it actually is possible, who knows? If it is possible, the long duration flights could be really interesting. Cheaper, as in the balloons are cheaper. You don't need that much gas, and we've got to start thinking about this. And perhaps something to discuss later is that helium is a finite resource. In the last 5 years, I'd say the price has doubled. Really has, it's cheap back there, really cheap. So maybe we should start thinking, well, we need to use less, or optimize what we're doing.
Hydrogen.
Or hydrogen. Why not? Maybe I was wondering about this, but foil balloons though and hydrogen, is that as safe?
Power lines.
Yeah. Who knows? Work that one out later. And unique challenges, reducing power consumption. Now there was a discussion before we started about power consumption, about why bother. And actually on most flights I wouldn't even bother about it, because you want data. But in these ones you've got to start thinking, well actually reducing the mass is going to be quite key for this. These balloons they're not very big, they don't pick up very much. And so you need to start thinking, well, how are we going to reduce the mass? And that's by reducing how much batteries are on board, or however you do your power generation. Long range tracking, they don't fly as high, so you don't get that sort of altitude range. We need to get some sort of, it's quite, but people quite enjoy long range tracking. There's a skill to it. It's quite, I'd say quite enjoyable. It's quite fun, finding a big stick, attaching your antenna to the top of that, sticking out your window and seeing what happens. People it's quite interesting, it's quite technical. And then off-the-shelf components, I'm not the best PCB designer, as I pointed out, I don't have an engineering background. So, what can I do with what I can find easily available? And these days, there's basically because of Spark Fun, there is everything available to you. Some sort of breakout orders somewhere. And there are now lots of people who resell them here, because it used to be that you got screwed by customs every 5 minutes because you'd order one thing and it would go. Yeah, so it's a lot easier these days. Balloons, mylar balloons, but foily mylar balloons. They're 92 centimetres diameter. They weigh about 37 grams. We've weighed lots of them, about 37 grams. You get about 25 to 30. You can probably get more grams of free left off it, and that's a variable amount. And for what we want to do right now, we want to get a 0.5 meters per second ascent rate. As I said, we'll talk about the maths and the theories later about it, and that's not the point of my project really, or the presentation. So what have I done? You may notice I've done a couple of flights, these PICO Atlas flights. And I've done we want to PICO Atlas 5. We've lost a few. We've lost most of them actually. 3 never launched because 3 is being developed. Basically, I carry on developing and then I sort of skipped ahead. So 3 latest ones is one of those. I've seen them all. I forgot the way. It's quite good. They're tiny, they're easy to work with. All the pins are out. Easy to if you're not a programmer. Good. Thing about them is that and they're light enough for this job. The radio is something different. NTX2, and I apologise to radiometrics because sponsoring this conference. But radiometrics, NTX are brilliant. They're light. They're not only about 8 grams, but when I'm working on a 27 gram payload and 8 of it's on my radio, you start to think, well, what? These are the other ones that are available. They're quite high level radios, as in the chip on board them does fast communication over short distances. They're not meant really for this job. They have variable power outputs, but we'll set it to the right one for the flight. But it could be higher. They have variable frequency. Well, what's about in the UK? Maybe we can look at this. Variable frequencies, so you can, instead of being stuck to one, you can change it a little bit, which is quite interesting, quite helpful to avoid, because there are some areas of massive interference that is not working nearby. The voltage input is quite reasonable for our areas, 1.8 to 3.6. That fits with ours nicely, what we're looking at. Communicate through SPI, which is a quite easy way of communicating these radios. As I said, they're quite complicated. It's not thing quickly, but that's not going to help us in this. Remember back at the front, I said long-range tracking. In their present state, they're not going to help us out too much. So, as I said, this is all prototyping. This is all loads of room for improvement, and I'm really happy for people to actually, this is not a good way of doing it. Why don't you try it this way? But I worked out that you could turn the carrier onto it, so it just makes a single tone, and then you can turn it on and off again, and there you go. Well, Morse goes one way. I'm quite a big fan of PowerShriver, which is another format of doing things, just because I think it looks cool. I'm not very good at Morse, as in I'm not trained enough to decode it, and actually, it's an interesting way of doing things. When I get onto this in a second about is that Morse is terribly decoded by computers. I don't know why it is, but all the programs we have are rubbish at it compared to the human ear. Like a skilled ham operator, whack it out really far better. And I've actually raced people on this about recording it, running it through multiple decoding programs, and seeing what the results are, and they get it every time by the human ear. So that's one thing. PowerShriver is an interesting one, and I'm actually going to go a demonstration to show you. You take the approach of an on-off, you're turning the transmitter on and off, and you have everything in a 7x7 grid. Okay, so you have a 7x7 grid, and on is black, off is white, and you work your way up the grid, and you create letters, you create characters. Does that make sense? You keep working on up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and it creates a character. Now, you think, well, this is quite a lot of work. Why not just use Morse code? As I said, the human ear is excellent at picking out Morse. The human eye is excellent at picking out letters. Even out of noise, you can pick out the letters. So even if you're copying,
should read the letters off the screen.
Yeah, I'm about to show you. With the demonstration. But as even in noise, you can pick it out really well. Probably not as good as Morse, but it's really accessible. If you can read, you can. And that was slightly the point of this, is to show you another way of doing things. It's not digital, and it's a shame, because digital makes life easy. Because our current setup, which we'll have to talk about now, is that, or later, is it decodes it. It passes it, it uploads it, it checks it, it puts it on the map. Job done. But this is going to have a bit more manual, inputting. But actually, as I said, people find that quite interesting. There's a bit of element of interaction.
Data interesting.
Well, yeah. Sorry.
OCR.
Well, they're all OCR, but I still suspect that we'll be better at it. Okay.
You should not put the mass of that thing there.
Oh, I don't. It's like 1 gram.
Is it like dangerous?
Okay. Let me show you what we're going to do. I've turned my payload on. There's loads of interference in the area, like usual. Now, my payload. Yeah, can I add? Okay, fine. Not yet, give me a second. As I said, I'm on 27 grams. So, it's every so often right now, it's just sending out a pulse. Everyone complains to me, there are loads of gaps in your transmission and we can never find it. So right now, I'm actually popping a character out. So yeah, no, that's something else. Mine is that. Because all it's gone is gone. Does that make sense? Like up and down the grid very quickly. And you see it though? There's a P there. And so this is a random character. When it gets around to doing a transmission of a string. Oh no, it's the same, PICO. It'll come. Well, I hope it comes.
There you go. There you go. And I haven't got a GPS lock because I've got it over there somewhere.
Why is it so that shift is happening because...
Well, so this is the clever thing about how shot is, okay. So you're sending it 7x7 grid. Now, this is an asynchronous system. In theory, to get it flat, you would need to have your timing on the system the same as the timing on the computer. So, and to get it straight, because if not, you might start, the computer's perhaps five characters up, 5 squares up, and you're coming in at 1 square. So what you do is you print it twice, so that at some point you're going to have a complete character. And so you print them twice, so that even if it's got a slant to it, you'll still be able to read it. And actually, this is invented back and it was used in World War II, and it actually was used, a German name. But it was used also on a lot of the transatlantic cables as well, on not a wireless mode, but actually as a wired mode. But there you go, see here, here's my string. Now, as I said, no GPS lock, so we've got my PICO, who cares. 400 is my count, that's how we're going around. This is the GPS time, but there's no lock over there, so I don't know what time it is. And this is just that latitude and longitude I just put in to show what's going on. Altitude, 1, 2, 3, just make sure. That's the battery voltage, that's my solar panel voltage. You see? So that's how it works in this. And this is a sort of example of how what we could do is quite easily is to have this system. Low powered, very easy to work with.
So give that some experience over the top of that.
Well, we've got loads of experience. Look at our there is, but it will come through quite well. There's no antenna on that right now either.
That's some keying up on that frequency.
Sorry? So yes, so there you go. So this is just another way of doing things.
Why is it actually slanting though? Is that just...
It's because the timings are all out, but the point is it doesn't matter. So some of you may have noticed that quite often we have, when you're tracking a balloon, you'll find that you see the string, RTTY, you see the string, and you click on it, on the transmission, and you get gobbledygook, because you're not in sync.
Yeah.
And actually we've lost a lot of strings that way. You're like, I'm so close, and I clicked at the wrong time. This, in theory, you could click at any point, because it's not synced at any rate. And you'll just get a bit of a slant on it, but because it's printed twice, you'll still be able to read it. As I said, these are all just ideas. This is like what I'm working on right now, so it may not work.
SSTV stuff as well, isn't it? You've done that for your SSTV stuff.
You lose it, yeah, if your sync's out. But that has quite good syncing pulses, so actually you don't lose that much on SSTV. So the GPS is the U-blocks. We love them. Well, sort of love them. The FSA 03. LP, most of you got the FSA, no LP. We've got LPs now, and now they've discontinued them at the range. LP is actually a U-block 6s. No one really realised that for a while, but actually they've been flown before as 6. They're actually the new state-of-the-art ones. They're about the same. You're not losing out from the 5 to the 6. As I said, these are 50-channel GPS modules. They're the top of the range, like what you can get for relatively cheap. Far better than a Latin IP, which is only 12 channels. Yeah. 50 channels, there aren't 50 satellites, are there?
32.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, no, they're one through.
They're good at getting a lock. They've got these helical antennas, so they're not so sort of patch antennae. They can point a little bit off and they can still get a lock. However, just to warn you, and lots of people know this, that solder joint there is dodgy. It comes off, and then you don't get any locks, and then the payload doesn't work. And I don't think I'm the only one that's actually suffered from this.
Everyone has.
Is anybody else?
It's not that simple though. They also, all U-Block 6 chipsets are really sensitive to power supply noise. The RF front end is directly connected to the power input. So
you go through a regulator
and everything.
Yeah.
If you don't have good decoupling and a good regulator, it won't get a lock.
So, but these are quite good as well. And they're light. This is the lightest GPS you can get right now. You're not going to get any light better than that.
I think it's 6 right round something.
Yeah, they're like the GPS Bs, the ones we got a while ago. I ordered like a year ago for they're 10 grams. This is 7.5.
Have you tried taking the rubber cap off the top? I think it might be possible to separate the black rubber cap from the center.
Yeah, they do come off. Yeah,
that would save a bit of weight.
Yeah, good idea.
It's only background. I've got some over there actually. They just come off.
Okay.
Okay, so power supply. So we talked about all the stuff I talked about. Actually, is pretty standard. we've got a radio, we've got a GPS, we've got a flight computer, drop down. Power supply, this is where everything weighs. And everyone's like, you've got to remember that lithium energizer batteries, the standard workhorse of this, are excellent. They're actually really light, but we're talking about, they actually weigh quite a bit when you start talking about a payload being 27 grams. And I actually have maybe forgotten the most important part of this is PICO Habbing we've been flying 4 balloons. Did you use 4 last night?
Yeah,
4 balloons. And the problem we found with these 4 balloons is that it's really hard to fill 4 balloons accurately so that 4 are the same. One of them's going to be filled a bit more than the others, or less, or whatever. And we're working on such a fine balance that there's a risk of bursting and blah. Why don't we fly with 1 balloon? The system is a lot simpler. The problem is making it light enough. So, in theory, a 27-gram payload can be lifted by 1 balloon, and it will simplify everything. And that's why I'm doing this. I forgot to say that. To me, it'd be lightweight, long duration. If these balloons float, it'd be a bit awful that the battery runs out, and you're like, we're right, it's working, and then wait for that to happen. But yeah, it'd be a shame. And it's got to survive the environment. The environment is hard, it's difficult to survive, especially long duration. They get cold. One option is a AAA lithium energizer. That will cope with the environment. It's quite a lot, and we could put a step-up regulator onto it, so we can boost its voltage up, and it'll be able to run all our stuff nicely. And that's quite a good option. The problem is that you've got a finite capacity in there. It will run out eventually, and because of the step-up, the efficiency isn't that great, so you're not going to get your maximum output out of that cell. The other option is a solar panel and a very small LiPo, or something you can charge. And what I've got right now is a small solar panel, a small LiPo charger which I've dead bug soldered, so it's not even on a breakout board, and then a tiny LiPo. It weighs 14 grams, which I'm quite proud of. And the capacity is variable. Now, this thing wakes up in sunlight. So even if the battery runs completely dead, or freezes, or whatever, it will wake up in sunlight. So imagine we amazingly launched a balloon and it survived overnight, it would still wake up. And that's why I've gone for that route, is that the hope that one day I might get these things to damn float and actually survive, rather than the limited one.
What do you get off your solar panel?
Sorry?
You get enough to power the whole thing?
You do get enough power. The GPS is the trouble. As in, you have to initially when it's not let me rephrase that. 110 milliamp LiPo I can run overnight now. My payload can run for 12 hours, or 14 hours overnight before the sun comes up, with a positional transmission every hour. Okay.
There's some header something to tune into, or is it?
Well, exactly, and it transmits regularly, but not with the GPS coordinates. Not a new lock of GPS. And that's one of the theories, is that if I transmit, even if we got a lock say an hour ago, can someone wiggle that? If we got a lock an hour ago, it's still useful to keep transmitting that, even if it's not new, because if someone's only just tuned in because it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it'd be useful to have any information is better than nothing. So we've got it. So if we can make nightfall with a charged LiPo, we can survive the night and turn on. The problem is it's going to freeze, and it will freeze, and we proved that point that the LiPos can't work below -15.
Like last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is cutting edge. So it's an interesting idea. It wouldn't scale up well to any other system. Go for the energizers. If you're doing a normal flight, don't do that. Anything else to say about this as well? No, don't worry. Whatever. Oh yes, talking about that as well. There's one thing I haven't added on to this yet, and I think this will be very helpful, which is a pressure sensor. Now, pressure sensors are a sort of thing that people look into quite a lot with these balloon payloads, but they find that they don't work very well at high altitudes. As in, they do quite well, they do work way out of their specs, but at the top, you're not getting data. This is perfect. We're not going to be flying above 9 kilometers at any point, and they're rated to 9 kilometers, so why don't we put one of these on? With these flights, what we've always been watching is the altitude. Like, are we floating, are we not floating, what's happening? The pressure sensor, in some ways, which uses its current is minimal in comparison to a GPS, would give us a relatively stable, if we're floating, it'd be relatively stable. So instead of, we can run the GPS every hour at night, we can get pressure sensor data back every 5 minutes, and actually be able to construct a valid, model of what's going on. We know where it is. If the pressure starts increasing, we're descending. If it's increasing, we're going up. Whatever, get my point. We can work out where we are. And then occasionally we get the GPS update to then localize us to where we are, see where we go for that. And that's in some ways the sort of saving grace at this point, because waiting for an hour for a GPS lock and any data in itself will drive you mad, and it's completely useless.
I think we could easily modify the predictor to forward guess in between the GPS locks based on the altitude it's set from the pressure sensor.
And then you keep the pressure sensor going, exactly. And also, every hour you're recalibrating your pressure sensor in some ways. You know, you can dynamically change the model. And my plan was to send the raw pressure down. We could do that on the ground. You know, like we can go, oh look, this. Okay, what's going on?
Have you stuck one in the balloon itself?
We haven't done that. This is not with this case, but we haven't. No. It would be something to look interesting to look into whether you could measure the small changes. Because I suspect that the pressure changes aren't that large, or maybe the module I got is probably not the appropriate one.
Or even on a later
I think there's a good half of PSI in between when they burst. Should be the different pressures should be that.
I mean, in this case, this would be useful because we've got one balloon, so we could easily put one inside and one outside.
Yeah.
That's quite doable on this, and it's on quite easy to do. So yeah, that's a really good idea. We'll see what happens with that. So I'm using Arduino. I know people use other things. Lots of good libraries available to use for this. The Tiny GPS, use our modified version because it's probably a bit better. Day and night mode, I know people go, oh, power saving, but in this case I really have to. I've got 110 milliamp hours. I haven't got that much capacity, I have to do it. And we're going to have temperature, pressure, and battery voltage and solar voltage. Solar voltage also doubles for night and day as well, that helps with that as well, obviously.
When you in between your GPS fixes, you're backing up the RAM on board the GPS module, so you're not having to do a complete reacquisition each time.
I haven't implemented that into the system yet. Okay. It would be beneficial to be able to go from a hot start rather than a cold start yourself.
So, I mean, if you're doing that on UBlocks 5 with a good sky view, it usually takes about 2 seconds to get a full lock. So that'd be really, really fast.
It would save power
literally run it for 2 seconds, spit out the position solution, and then you can turn it off.
How long does it take to get lock at them?
Well, from a cold start, it's the sky view, probably about a minute.
So that'd be a massive improvement.
It's interesting to look at the volt. Like the U-Block 6 is a really interesting one to look at because it's got some. U-Block 5 has awful power saving. Like they actually haven't really ever bothered implementing power saving. 6s have actually got some really clever power savings where they flick on and off very quickly, and then it averages out. You can get like a tracking mode at about 10 milliamp. You know that you can be that low. Needs a bit of work. You know, this is my first prototyping of it, and we'll probably end up launching this anyway and then seeing what happens because there are loads of different variables that we need to explore.
Yeah, the other one that's interesting on the voltage. Can anybody see the thing about the people tracking nightingales? They're too small for you to put a GPS on it, so they just put a little clock and a solar, like a sunshine detector on it, and you can tell from where you are on the day-night terminator during the dawn and at dusk, and you can actually get an X about roughly where you are. So
I see.
50K.
So you're locating them by the and when it changes, you're like, well, where are you?
You must be on the terminator at that time.
Yeah, very clever.
So
really
the phase and duty cycle of the.
Very clever.
So you might be able to get, given that you're measuring that and broadcasting it.
Yeah. Be interesting.
You might be able to get a bit more info.
You could also,
altitude changes things.
You could also use RDF techniques where you measure the phase differences between two aerials, and you can get a very accurate position.
But yeah, so this is, as I said, there are loads of things. There's an opening eye area. Yeah, but yeah. It's working. Let's transmit position. But yeah, I completely.
It's easy. It's much easier.
Much easier. Fine. So the plan is a single balloon. Good weather. Morning launch. We need sunlight for my solar panel to work. Of course we'll start charged, but it'd be nice to be able to keep it charged throughout the whole day, and then at night, if it's still up in the air, to still, carry on. Multiple trackers, I'm going to need everyone's help in this one. Low altitude, you need some, it needs to be tracked, and also not that easy. And aim for a flight path that keeps near to land. Might as well stay near to us. Problem is, of course, is now I'm past the summertime. Days are getting shorter, but hey, we'll see what happens. It might launch anyway. I'm like that. Right, and that's my payload that I'm working on right now. As I said, it's a little bit at the cutting edges, and I was still soldering it last night. Still doesn't really work truly. But this is an idea of things that we're beginning to look into. The one thing I haven't spoken about is the legality of all this, which is it's not a meteorological balloon, it's a foil balloon. However, the balloon rules say that if everything, including the balloon, are within 2 meters throughout the whole flight, then in theory it is exempt from any rules like that. The point is that it's so tiny and it allows people to have particles. So we're just sort of tapping on
Piggybacking on the back of that.
Piggyback with it. And actually, I would say that we're trying to use less balloons, so that it's a smaller thing. The payload does only weigh 27 grams. Birds weigh more than that, and they run into things all the time. So, and we're also pretty much always and we're pretty much launching out to sea most of the time on these. We're not launching into heavily dense areas. It's quite calculated because we need it to be like that as well. And
Is it worth trying to seek clearance on these? Or is it,
I think it's one of those things where the rules are there, in theory, and so I think you're just be muddying, confusing matters more. Rather, the rules are there. They distinctly say that if everything, and it is everything, is within 2 meters at any point, throughout the whole thing, rather than that's why you can't use the latex on this. The new example.
When you say low altitude, what's your float altitude?
About 6 or 7 kilometers. Float altitude's a bit unfair because we haven't really done it yet.
What did you get last night? You got a bit of an
7.2 kilometres.
Yeah.
We lost track, but like I say, Graham's still got signal 2-3 hours later, still quite strong. So
probably, if it was going to go any more,
maybe even 8.5. We don't know. We lost GPS.
It looked like it was entering.
I thought it was green, apart from that occasional blip, which maybe went crazy for a second. So that sort of upset
that's a problem with the software from last night. It was bang on every time. Probably the same bug that caused the last one. Because what we did is we put a counter in the code to stop it from just giving last time to put some text.
Alright, so that's probably
if you check, it was bang on every 10 minutes. But the last we coded out was 7263.
Yeah. So as I said, this is a new thing. I wouldn't recommend it as a first balloon thing to do, but I think some of the things are important as well. Trying to reduce your mass is important. The mass as well, you get to use less gas, it's probably better. Trying to reduce your power consumption is different matter, and looking at different ways of doing things, different formats of transmission, and it's quite there's a reason why amateur radio people who enjoy that don't just use the most obvious one. There's a wide variety of protocols because there is an interest in not just doing the simple, obvious thing. That's my talk done. I'm very happy to answer questions that you've probably asked based on already.
One question on the balloons. Do you get quite a lot of bursts there? So they're not actually able to withstand the pressure, or
they burst. It seems to be they burst, at least. And the question is whether it's quite a fine balance to get the float.
Is it the seams that burst as well?
Actually, no.
The balloon split.
The balloon itself is, at least the ones we've had, we're collecting all the data.
Yeah.
If you end up doing one of these flights, please tell us the data because we're collecting it together. And it's the actual balloon bursts across itself rather than the seam.
Okay.
I did get one broken.
But the one we recovered recently was from
the ones I've tested at home.
Yeah,
got one that went at the seam to begin with.
But most of them do.
So you've done some basic inflation tests on the ground as well?
We fill them with water, we fill them with gas.
And where they all bursted, basically?
Well, these ones also.
I measured them and with a manometer, so it was really crude, but about half a PSI.
But we've had one flight where it floated for about 6 minutes and then we lost tracking on it. And we've had another flight which we suspected floated. So they can do it, we reckon. Maybe.
Have you tried testing different brands of foil balloons and trying to find the most precious?
92 centimetre balloons, there is really only one. I've only really found one brand.
Politics,
yeah, there's only one brand we can find right now.
That's just the biggest balloon.
And we've contacted to try and see if we can make them as well. That's another.
Maybe password.
Oh, hello, H3LEA.
On making, it is Mylar
It's
not really, no, it's an atomized.
I think it's up nylon, I think.
Yeah.
It's a minimalised nylon. It's what
But
people call
Mylar's-
Mylar.
It's not dirt cheap. It's very easy to get.
It's not easy to seal.
Our concern would be that our sealing method would be inferior, and therefore that would be where our first point would be.
Would it be a heat sink?
I think it seems difficult with them.
It is, but it's something to look into, certainly. What's quite nice about these is that they're so easy to get. as an off-the-shelf.
I mean, you could make them, if you wanted to try and make a balloon like that, you might even try tetrune, you know, make out.
Yeah, well maybe the shape that we have right perhaps isn't the most optimal shape either. But if you, this afternoon, Dan's going to talk about high altitude balloon, things like that, and super pressures, and they're thinking about making it, and they've got a different material completely they think they're going to use. So that might be something to talk about, ask them. Because I'm going to carry on throwing the like what I can get purely from the fact that I'm sort of seeing, can I match, can I change what I can change so that it works with that. But very good, very fair point. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.